The twilight deepened, casting long, skeletal shadows from the gnarled oaks lining the dirt path. A chill, damp air clung to the fields surrounding my grandfather's farm, a place where time seemed to move with the languid rhythm of the seasons. He and Sherry, his small Boston Terrier, were on their usual evening stroll, a ritual as familiar as the setting sun. Sherry, named for a departed friend, trotted ahead, her tiny paws kicking up puffs of dust that shimmered in the fading light. My grandfather, a man etched with the lines of time and weathered by years of farm work, moved with a steady, deliberate pace. He lived with Mary Ann, his wife of 15 years, in a simple farmhouse nestled amidst the sprawling fields. Mary attended to Sherry's morning walks, while the evening belonged to my grandfather. The path, a narrow ribbon of earth, wound along the edge of the dense woods that bordered their property. As they walked, a figure emerged from the shadows, a stranger shrouded in a large, concealing hood. Sherry, ever vigilant, let out a sharp, staccato bark, tugging at her leash, her small body vibrating with canine suspicion. My grandfather, a man of polite habit, offered a simple greeting, a hello, that hung unanswered in the still air. The hooded figure remained silent, a spectral presence that glided past without so much as a glance. Sherry, her hackles raised, continued to glance back, her barks punctuating the quiet of the evening. My grandfather, his patience wearing thin, gently chided her, pulling on the leash to urge her forward. Yet, the persistent barking, the unwavering gaze of his small companion, stirred a disquiet within him. He turned, his eyes scanning the deepening shadows. A figure stood motionless behind a thick oak, a dark silhouette against the fading light. It was the hooded stranger, watching them with an unnerving stillness. A prickle of unease ran down my grandfather's spine. He quickened his pace, his old joints protesting the sudden exertion. He instinctively reached into the deep pocket of his worn coat, his fingers closing around the reassuring canister of pepper spray he always carried, a precaution against the isolation of his rural life. The air grew heavy with a sense of impending threat. The crunch of dry leaves, a sound that should have been comforting in its familiarity, now sounded like the stealthy approach of danger. My grandfather's heart pounded in his chest as he strained to reach the safety of his house. Suddenly, a sound, a distinct series of clicks from the leaves inches behind him, shattered the fragile silence. Before he could react, a warm, gloved hand clamped over his mouth and nose, cutting off his breath, silencing his cry. The world narrowed to the feel of the rough glove, the smell of damp earth, and the rising panic in his chest. Through the haze of fear, he heard Sherry's frantic barks, the sharp snaps of her teeth as she nipped and bit at the attacker's legs. The small dog's fierce loyalty, her desperate defense, provided a momentary distraction, a sliver of an opening. My grandfather, his breath ragged, his vision blurred, fumbled with the pepper spray, his fingers clumsy with fear. With a surge of adrenaline, he pressed the nozzle, unleashing a torrent of stinging spray. He continued to spray, a desperate, blind act of self-preservation, even as the attacker's grip loosened, even as the figure recoiled, howling in pain. He stumbled forward, his lungs burning, his eyes watering, driven by the primal instinct to survive. He ran, or as close to a run as his aged body could manage, toward the warm light of his farmhouse, toward the safety of his home. He reached it, his breath coming in ragged gasps, his heart pounding like a drum, leaving the hooded figure and the quiet danger of the woods behind him. He was safe, unharmed, saved by the loyalty of his small dog and the quick thinking in a moment of terror.